Hello, dear audience. Today, we bring you a deeply emotional story about family love, faith, and a miraculous recovery. When James's father suffered a severe stroke overseas, the entire family was thrown into panic. James, along with his mother and his beloved Deep, rushed to his side during what seemed to be his final moments. Amid the tense and uncertain days in a foreign hospital, love and tireless care gave way to a miracle. His father gradually recovered. And when he could walk again, the whole family attended a Thanksgiving Mass together. Surrounded by candlelight, prayers, and tears of joy, they realized that the greatest gift in life is simply being together. This is not just a story of survival, but a tender hymn about faith, healing, and the unbreakable bond of family. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. Thank you for watching. That evening, the sky felt unusually heavy. Gray clouds blanketed the city. James had just returned home from the office, while Deep was in the kitchen, preparing dinner. Their small apartment was warm and cozy, filled with the comforting aroma of lemongrass and ginger. Everything seemed peaceful, ordinary, until the phone rang. It was a sharp, urgent sound that sliced through the quiet like a blade. James glanced at the screen. His mother was calling from Italy, where she and his father had been living since his dad retired. She rarely called at this hour. A knot tightened in James's chest. He answered quickly. "Mom?" There was a heavy pause on the other end, then her voice broke through, raspy and strained. "James, your father, he's had a stroke. I'm at the hospital, they say it's very serious." The words hit like a thunderclap. James froze, his face drained of color. Deep rushed to his side, alarmed. "What is it? What happened?" James didn't respond. He clutched his head with both hands, struggling to breathe, as if the air had been sucked out of the room. His thoughts were spinning. Memories of his father flashed through his mind like a reel of film, carrying him home after scraped knees, teaching him how to fix a bicycle, the heated arguments that always ended with a quiet hug. That strong, unshakable man, now lying helpless in a hospital bed across the world? Without hesitation, James made a decision. "We have to go. Now." "I'm coming with you," Deep said, gripping his hand. They moved quickly, packing in silence. Tears fell quietly as they folded jackets and gathered passports. The next flight out left at 3 a.m. There was barely time to notify work and inform a few close friends. James's mother, still shaken, met them at the airport. The overnight flight felt endless. James sat by the window, staring into the darkness beyond the glass. Deep leaned on his shoulder, her hand covering his trembling one. Every hour felt like a lifetime. James's mind swirled with fear and regret. Would his father survive? Would he ever get the chance to say the things he hadn't said, how much he loved him, how much he admired him? He hadn't done enough, hadn't said enough. They arrived in Florence just as the morning light crept across the sky. The cold air hit their faces like a reminder that this was real. At the hospital, they rushed through sterile corridors to the intensive care unit. There, behind a wall of machines, lay James's father, pale, still, and fragile. Tubes ran from his arms. Monitors blinked quietly. His heartbeat was faint but steady. James's mother sat by the bed, her eyes swollen from tears. She looked up as they entered, then turned her gaze back to the man she loved. James stepped forward and knelt by the bed. His father's hand moved ever so slightly, barely a twitch, but enough to break the darkness. James took that hand and rested his forehead against it. His voice was barely a whisper, trembling with emotion. "I'm here, Dad. Please don't leave me." Seven days passed in the hospital, 7 days that felt like an eternity. James barely left the intensive care unit. Every morning, he would come in, greet his father, and recount old memories. Every night, he would sit by the bedside, holding his father's hand and whispering words of love. Deep stayed close the entire time, quietly caring for James and his mother, preparing simple meals, making hot tea, or just sitting in silence so they wouldn't feel alone. No one said it out loud, but in their hearts, they were all praying. Praying for a miracle. And then, one early morning as the city of Florence still lay veiled in mist, that miracle happened. James was sitting by the bed, rereading one of his father's old letters, when he suddenly heard a faint groan. His head snapped up, his heart nearly stopped. His father's eyes, closed for 7 long days, were flickering open. "Dad?" James called softly, his voice trembling. His father's dry lips moved slightly. A shallow breath escaped. James leapt up and called the doctors, tears already streaming down his face. When the medical team rushed in, all the vital signs had begun to stabilize. His father, who had stood on the edge of life and death, was coming back. The joy spread through the hospital room like a beam of sunlight breaking through dark clouds. Deep hugged James tightly while his mother sobbed, unable to speak. In the days that followed, recovery came slowly but surely. His father still couldn't speak clearly or sit up on his own, but he responded to their eyes, gripped their hands, and cried each time James whispered, "Dad. I'm here." James and Deep took turns caring for him. Deep learned how to make simple, healthy Italian dishes, which she lovingly combined with the Vietnamese meals he used to enjoy: chicken porridge, vegetable broth, soft steamed bread soaked in bone broth. "You need your strength, Dad. We want you home," she would say gently, feeding him one spoonful at a time. James pushed his father's wheelchair into the hospital garden every afternoon, where the sun shone and birds chirped in the trees. He told his father little stories, ordinary things he'd never thought to share before. At sunset, the three of them would sit side by side, watching the sky turn orange and gold. The fear, the questions, why did this happen, or what if he doesn't make it, had faded. What remained was gratitude. He was still here. still breathing, still surrounded by love. When the doctors finally said he was stable enough to begin physical therapy, it was as if a new door had opened. James hugged Deep tightly, while his mother nodded through her tears. "Thank God. Thank you." The light of recovery didn't just return life to his father, it rekindled the warmth of a family bond that time and distance had quietly eroded. James knew, deep in his soul, that he would never let it fade again. A month later, as the spring sun began to shine through the windows of the rehabilitation center, James's father could finally stand and take a few steps with the help of wooden crutches. His face had grown thinner, his hair whiter, but his eyes gleamed with a light renewed, the look of someone who had walked through death's door and returned, cherishing every breath, every moment. That morning, James made a special suggestion. "Let's go to church. I want our whole family to attend a Thanksgiving Mass, to thank God for keeping Dad with us." His mother nodded, her eyes already filled with tears. Deep gently squeezed James's hand and smiled warmly. "Yes. Our family needs that." They chose a small, ancient church nestled on the hillside, where every stone seemed steeped in time. The sky that day was an astonishing blue, as if it had been washed clean after the rain. The scent of lavender drifted in the breeze, and the church bells echoed through the quiet air like a call from heaven. James's father wore a crisp white shirt and a soft blue tie, the birthday gift James had given him years ago. James supported him as he climbed each step of the church's stone stairs. Deep followed behind, carrying a basket of candles and flowers. His mother watched every movement with tender care, as if the whole world now rested on her husband's fragile shoulders. When they sat in the front pew, the priest noticed them and nodded in welcome. In his sermon, he spoke of healing, not just of the body, but of the soul, of those who had endured loss and fear. Then, during a special prayer for a father who has returned from the edge of death to be with his family, none of them could hold back their tears. Amid flickering candlelight and steady, rhythmic prayers, James reached out and held his father's hand, squeezing it with gentle strength. His father turned to look at him, then at his wife and at Deep, the daughter-in-law he now fully embraced as his own. He said nothing, just gave a slight nod, but in his eyes were 1,000 thank yous and a lifetime of love unspoken. At the end of the Mass, the whole family knelt before the statue of Christ, their hearts overflowing with emotion. James whispered his prayer. "Thank you, Lord, for giving me more time. Thank you, because we still have each other." Outside the church, they paused at the steps, looking out over the green valley stretching below the hill. The last rays of sunlight fell softly onto his father's silver hair, like a halo of peace born from faith. For the first time since waking up, James's father smiled fully, genuinely. James held Deep's hand, turned to his parents, and said, "From this day on, no matter what happens, we'll stay together. Family is the greatest miracle life can offer." And they walked on, into the evening light, like a quiet hymn rising through a life once shaken, but now whole again. The story of James's family truly moved me. It's not just a journey of overcoming illness but a testament to the power of love, faith, and the sacred bond between family members. Moments that seemed hopeless became an opportunity for them to realize the deep value they hold for one another. The image of the whole family attending the Thanksgiving Mass touched my heart and reminded me that sometimes, miracles aren't about the extraordinary, they're found in the warm presence of those we love.